What's going on, guys? Phantasm Mask here, taking a bit of a break from editing my Persona 4 Let's Play to talk about a game that was, it's actually been released over the past month or so, but it's finally, all 4 parts are out, and I just kind of wanted to give my thoughts on Resident Evil Revelations 2, mostly because I'm a big Resident Evil fan. I've loved the franchise for quite some time, and, this year so far has been pretty heavy-duty with Resident Evil releases. I mean, it's March now, and the second full-length game is now available for purchase. You can buy it physical or digital. And I bought the Season Pass because $25 as opposed to waiting on it to come out and then paying $40 for a physical copy didn't exactly seem like my forte, so even worst-case scenario, I'm out $25 instead of $40. So, God, where do we even begin with Revelations 2? I guess I should probably give my thoughts on Revelations 1. Revelations 1 is... I have an incredibly unpopular opinion with Revelations 1. I did not like it. I played it on PlayStation 3, and I thought it was really, really boring. I thought the enemy design was uninspired, and I felt like the claim that this was kind of like a throwback to classic Resident Evil really, it had no, it didn't hold any ground. I just felt like Revelations was kind of this mishmash between 5 and 4, and it just really didn't feel like classic Resident Evil to me at all. Also, Fat Russell Crowe, which is probably the biggest inside joke with one of my friends, because he watched me play through that game and he thought, wow, this was completely horrible, and I don't even remember what that character's name is, but he just looks like a really fat version of Russell Crowe. And although it was nice to see Jill in the main character role again, it was nice to see that. I didn't feel like it's not a bad game, but it's also not a good one. It's just like, it's a mediocre... I wouldn't even go as far as to say it's a horror title, because it's not even really that scary. It didn't have a sense of dread or a feeling of terror. Ammo really wasn't that scarce for me, but moving on with Revelations 2. Revelations 2, to me, caught my attention because we were going to be playing as Barry Burton again. And then when they announced that it was an episodic structure, I'm like, okay, this is a bit different. It makes a lot more sense for me to do the episodic structure because of how Revelations 1 played out. I honestly think if Revelations 1 was in the same vein as 2 with the episodic structure, it probably would have been better and not seen so kind of cobbled together into one product. Revelations 2, you play as both Claire and Barry. Claire also has a companion, which is Moira Burton, Barry's daughter, or at least one of his daughters, and then Barry has a little girl by the name of Natalia with him. And each episode is divided into 2. You play as Claire first, and the actions that you perform in Claire's campaign carry over into Barry's, which I thought was a nice touch. These campaigns are... And I've seen Resident Evil do this before. They try to... When they have different campaigns or something like this, they try to make them differently themed. Especially with RE6. If you remember Resident Evil 6, Leon was kind of geared more towards the classic style of Resident Evil. Chris was all-out action. Jake and Sherry was kind of a mishmash between both that didn't work out too well. And then you had Ada's campaign. But you kind of have that division here where Claire's campaign feels more like RE5. Or, I hate to say, but sometimes even RE6. And it's more action-based, whereas Barry is kind of picking up the remnants of that. We're dealing with, things that Claire didn't necessarily mop up on her side of the campaign, Barry has to deal with, and it's more in the vein of survival horror is what I'm getting at. And I think by the time I got done with episode 2, with both Claire and Barry, I think I knew how the rest of this game was going to play out. And I was kind of right, except for one thing, that there are multiple endings with this game, and thankfully I got the good ending. Revelations 2 is a mess. There are several points, for example, in episode 2, there is a section where Claire has to fend off several infected, inside of like a small cabin. You already know what I'm getting at. And it seems like every single Resident Evil game that has come out since 4 has tried to capture what people loved about 4, even going as far as to recycle content. And what I mean by that is, oh look, it's Revelations 2, here's your obligatory cabin defense scene, here's your giant monster, it's all the same. I've seen all of this before. They are even recycling the same virus from Resident Evil 5. Well, yes and no, but there's an enemy that you encounter in Barry's section in episode 1 where he makes a remark saying, this is very reminiscent of Ouroboros, and I'm just like, yeah, it is, because Revelations is kind of recycling content. Whereas I will give props to Revelations 1 for having a brand new sort of virus, enemy design, doesn't have that, like, the enemies that have Ouroboros in this game, which pretty much all of them, all have that orange weak point from 5, whereas Revelations was completely different. Like, I remember there was an enemy that had like a buzzsaw arm kind of thing going on. It kind of looked like a giant sea sponge with teeth. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. That enemy was very hard to kill, and I felt was probably the most unique enemy type to come out of Revelations 1, whereas in the second one, it's like they look different, but they act just like the Ouroboros enemies from 5. And I was kind of hoping for something original with this game, and, they even made a reskin of the Executioner Mangini from 5 in this game. I think they call him the Ironhead. It's not original. It's not new. So if you're looking at this expecting to see all new enemy types, you're not going to see very many here. There are a few notable exceptions, like when you're playing as Barry in episode 2, you're introduced to a set of invisible enemies that only Natalia can detect, and she has to point them out to you and say, shoot here, shoot here. I honestly found that a little bit annoying after a while, but at first that was like, okay, that's new, that's awesome. Where are the other enemy types that are on that caliber where I have to do something like that? Which, bringing up the partner system, I'm not a fan of having an AI partner in survival horror games. In fact, I think when you have an AI partner in your survival horror game, it stops being survival horror. The second that you introduce a partner that is there to save you, your game is no longer scary, and all the tension is gone. It's what made REs 1 through 3 great. 4 had a little bit more tension to it because your partner could not fight back. And then 5, it just went completely bananas, and your AI partner just expends ammo and is just there to save you whenever you need them. And it was even worse in 6. And Revelations 1, granted, didn't necessarily have that the entire time. What the point I'm getting at is that the partner system in Revelations 2 is horrible. It's really bad. They get in the way. They don't really offer much, even to the point where if you're looking for collectibles in the environment, you have to switch over to your partner to spot certain collectibles. For example, if you're playing as Moira with Claire, she has a flashlight, and she has to use this flashlight to point out collectibles in the environment. Capcom, what are you doing? It's so dumb. Just let me find hide them in a box, or hide them behind something, or even make a puzzle out of it, which is another thing I can talk about, is that the collectible chests in this game require your partner to open them. And it's this weird kind of... It's hard to describe. You're given a sphere, and you're given a general area to which you need to unlock a chest, and you have to kind of zoom in on it with the trigger, and that's supposed to be them unlocking it, and it has to stay within the circle. Like, there's a circle somewhere in the grid, and you have to find that circle and press the trigger all the way in to unlock it. And you get infinite tries with this, in my experience, so it's just time-consuming if you screw it up. It's just kind of annoying when you have to get customizable parts out of these chests, because I don't want to take the time to open it up. I really don't. Some of these chests require 3 locks and are incredibly picky. Revelations 2 is a mess. Campaign-wise, story-wise, it is absolutely stupid. It is bonkers. It is off the rails. It is like RE6 off the rails. That's what we're dealing with here with Revelations 2. The story is not as much of a garbled mess as 6, but it's just as absurd. And I know what I'm saying is kind of strange because the plot in Resident Evil has never been like the pinnacle of storytelling. Resident Evil has always had a very dumb plot behind it. But Revelations 2 is dumber than your average Resident Evil game. For those of you who got the good ending, you probably know what I'm talking about. This game is a little bit absurd, and if they're going to make a Revelations 3, it's going to be even more bonkers than this already is. But story-wise, for the most part, I enjoyed playing as Barry more than Claire. I felt that Moira was not a welcome addition to the Resident Evil franchise. I feel like she's kind of useless. Natalia serves a purpose in the game, but without going into spoilers, whatever. The second big part, and the big thing that I want to talk about with Revelations 2 is raid mode. I believe raid mode was included in the original Revelations, and I never played it. I got rid of my copy of Revelations as soon as I finished the campaign. I love raid mode. Raid mode is so ridiculously simple of a premise, but has you coming back due to RNG drops and just the fact of, hey, level this character up. It's an RPG-style version of Mercenaries. And while I still prefer Mercenaries over raid mode is the highlight of Revelations 2. Being able to play this and just go through waves upon waves of enemies, fighting them throughout a map. Like, I did a stream the other night where I was playing as Wesker, just going through the map and just decimating enemies with the Colt Python. It was awesome. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I can't wait for the co-op patch to come out so that way I can play with potentially other people. But is raid mode worth $25 that I paid for it? Probably not. I would probably say it's worth more around the 15. If Capcom wants to go ahead and make an entire game based around raid mode, if they properly expand it, sure, I'll buy it. As far as the $25 price tag for the overall product, I feel like I got my money's worth. For the amount of content, it took me about a little over an hour per episode, so you have 4 hours of campaign, roughly, maybe 4.5, and then you also have raid mode. $25, sure. Do I recommend picking up the physical copy of this? Absolutely not. $40 is way too much to be paying for Revelations 2, especially since I can easily see this game coming down in price rather quickly. If you want to spend your money on a Resident Evil title this quarter, early 2015, I would recommend going and get the Resident Evil remaster that came out. It is a much better game than this. Revelations 2, at the end of the day, is nothing more than a mediocre installment in the Resident Evil franchise on par with... I would say that it's slightly better than Revelations 1. It didn't give me as much of a headache as that game did. It's better than 6. It's weird. It's in that middle ground where I'm just like, at some points I'm like, I'm not interested in this, and then it's like, okay. I do have to give Capcom credit. One big problem I had with Revelations 1 is that there were almost no revelations in that game, and at the end of every single one of these episodes in Revelations 2, there is a revelation. So it lives up to its name. If I had to give Revelations a grade out of 10, I'd give it a 6. If you can get this cheap digitally, like $25, sure, go ahead. If you got the money to spend and you like Resident Evil, you'll probably enjoy this. Just know that there are some problems, like with your AI partner, and the story isn't really all that interesting. But raid mode is incredibly fun. I can't wait, as I said before, for that co-op patch to come out, because I'm sure that one of my friends will download it and will play that. So that's all I have. 6 out of 10 for Revelations 2. Thank you guys for watching. Before I go, leave a comment down below as to whether or not you liked Revelations 2. You have any problems with it? You enjoying raid mode? Let me know in the comments below. I love hearing your guys' thoughts. So, thanks for watching. Phantasm Mask here, signing out.